and welcome to U.S. Cricket Daily, the world's first podcast dedicated to Major League Cricket and the number one podcast in the U.S. charts. I'm Peter Della, Penna, and with me is Aaman Patel.
Hey Peter, it's good to be back with you. We had another game. Wish you would have gone the whole way through it. Actually, I thought it was going to end up being a really tight finish, but Steve Smith was having his way with the bat, and that was cool to see in person. But we're going to bring you up to date on the latest match in Major League Cricket, where the Washington Freedom beat the defending champions MI New York by 4 runs through the DLS method.
U.S. Cricket Daily is brought to you in association with Clyde Hill Publishing and its book imprints Clyde Hill and Pulley Press, which are dedicated to founders, innovators, thinkers, and tinkerers everywhere. Pre-order our book on the rise of Major League Cricket in America at ClydeHillPublishing.com.
Yeah, you can also follow U.S. Cricket Daily on Instagram, X, and TikTok. And if you head to our YouTube, you can see our interview with the Seattle Orcas and USA World Cup captain Aaron Jones. Just search U.S. Cricket Daily. Hit subscribe, follow us, and rate us on Apple and Spotify because it really helps us. And if you want to get in touch, email us at hello@uscricketdaily.com.
Well, Aaman, the match today, MI New York, it was always going to be challenging for them, considering the fact that it was 99 degrees yesterday, real feel of 110, and then they were asked to come back less than 24 hours later to try and keep their winning streak going from last season, and they weren't able to do it. Washington Freedom win by 4 runs on DLS method, as you said, with Saurabh Netravalkar, USA's World Cup hero, picking up Player of the Match award for his 3 for 24 in the first innings. And he did well at the death. He did well at the start. They sandwiched the innings well. There weren't really too many areas where MI New York had opportunities to build momentum. What was your standout take on tonight's match?
I thought Washington really used their bowlers well. I think Steve Smith's first run at captaincy went quite well. You know, obviously there were moments where you felt that MI could really get ahead of the game, and I don't think Steve Smith ever let them. The Washington bowlers were really good. You mentioned Saurabh Netravalkar, but I thought Justin Dill was really exceptional as well. He got almost, I think, surprising to some folks, maybe that he was in the game over in Ian Holland, but gets in the game and 3 wickets for 33 runs in his 4 overs, and he picked up big wickets, did a little rugby celebration. I got to chat to him, so he's cheering on South Africa in the Rugby World Cup. But I really liked what he brought. And again, Steve Smith didn't let the perception of what the players should be dictate how he was going to use them. Akil Hussain, who's been terrific over the last 12 months, got 1 over in this game. It was Glenn Maxwell who got 3. So he was willing to use the off spinner with, the likes of Nicholas Puran and Ruben Clinton in town. He was willing to use the off spinner there. So I thought, used the matchups quite well. And I thought that was really the difference. Even when Rashid Khan was, hitting it down the ground, scoring 31 off 15, it was just matchups. It was just, we're not going to let you keep going. We're going to find our way through you. And I thought that was what Washington did well with the ball.
And you mentioned that in terms of captains not getting carried away with reputations and just paying attention to what they're seeing on the field on the day with regards to Akil Hussain only bowling 1 over. On the flip side, for MI New York, you could argue the same. We touched on it a little bit yesterday. Stephen Taylor, not in the lineup. First round pick, retained from last year. One of USA's standout players over the years. USA's all-time leading scorer across formats, and somebody who's taken buckets and buckets of wickets with his off-spin, in the top 5 all-time for USA in wickets, despite starting his career as a wicketkeeper, and yet he's not in the lineup tonight. Ruben Clinton preferred both as an opener, batting left-handed and bowling off-spin. If you ask somebody before the start of the season who's going to be opening the batting left-handed and bowling off-spin for MI New York, I'm not sure too many people would have said Ruben Clinton instead of Stephen Taylor, but that's what's happened over the first couple of matches. And Taylor makes way for Nash Kenjige in the lineup, who only got to bowl 4 balls as a consequence of the match being curtailed to rain after 7.4 overs in the chase. But I'm curious for your thoughts on the decision, and this isn't the first time. This happened once or twice last year as well, where Stephen Taylor was left out of the lineup, so it's not totally foreign to people who have been paying attention to MLC, but to have it happen fairly early on in season 2, what's your take on that, Aaman?
Yeah, it was something that was kind of brought to my attention before game one. Talking to some folks who'd been at the practice game and been to some of the net sessions, and they were talking about how MI really likes Ruben Klint. They like what they see from him. They feel like he's a really good option. And when they made the pick, it almost felt like a depth pick in the draft. And I said, okay, it makes sense if Steven goes down. He's someone who can kind of fill in that role. And I was just in my head, I was like, there's no way he's going to play over Steven Taylor. And then in game one, he played alongside Steven Taylor. And they've loved what they've seen from him. And they're going to continue to love it because I don't think he's played poorly. And I think what they're looking for is just a little bit of stability. I don't think they're looking at anyone to go at around 150 opening the batting because their middle order is where New York, that's where their bread is buttered, right? You have Nicholas Putter and Tim David and Kieran Pollard and Rashid Khan and even Anurag Nortje is hitting sixes. I mean, everyone's scoring in the middle. So you just need someone to kind of get you through the power play, score some runs, and don't let the wickets fall. And Ruben Clinton is fitting that bill at the moment. And I'm surprised to see it happen, but apparently through camp, Ruben Clinton has been the one to outshine.
Use the word stability there, and that's unfortunately something you don't get with Steven Taylor. He's very much boom or bust, and more often than not recently, it's been bust for USA and for MI New York. And he's somebody who, at this stage of his career, I think a lot of people, myself included, and talking with other people in the U.S. cricket community, they almost see him more as a bowler now more than a batter nowadays. He's a very effective wicket taker when he comes on to bowl his off spin, especially to left-handers, but he's just become very unreliable at the top of the order, and it's gotten to the point almost where anytime he does score runs, it's seen as a bonus rather than something you take for granted. And that may be part of the reason why Ruben Clinton has preferred, because, as you said, the word stability, he's got something that he brings in terms of consistency, and you know what you're going to get out of him. And so far, he's made some decent contributions for MI New York. 28 off 22 balls tonight, 3 fours and a 6. Third high score in the innings. In a total of 154 for 9, it's a bit peculiar to see nobody get past 50. Nicholas Poor on top scoring with 44 off 30 balls, and then Rashid Khan really boosted the innings when they looked like they were going to potentially be bowled out for a very cheap score like Seattle Orcas were last night. They were 111 for 7 in the 17th over when Trent Bolt got out to Justin Dill for Justin Dill's third wicket. And then Rashid Khan, he does it all. Aaman, 2 fours, 3 sixes. It's not just the leg spin. He's been doing it on the franchise circuit around the world with his bat as well, and he showcased that again tonight in Morrisville.
Yeah, I think he almost saved the innings when Nicholas Puran got out, right? And Nicholas Puran looked great once again, but goes to pull and just picked out the fielder. We were actually setting up for a segment with a couple of Washington fans to be like, "What would you guys do to get Puran out?" And because we were walking by, and one was like, "We need divine intervention to get Nicholas Puran out." So we were going to do that segment, and then immediately Nicholas Puran gets out. And from there, you're thinking, man, Washington can wrap this up pretty cleanly. Like 120 is going to be tough from this point as Puran goes. Because you were 104 for 6, and Tim David's already gone at that point, and Paulie's gone at that point. There's a lot to be asked. And Rashid Khan was terrific. I mean, it's that little wristy motion to get himself over a cow corner that he's kind of perfected. And he wasn't just taking, let's say Travis Head or Glenn Maxwell down the ground. He's taking, someone of high regard in Marco Janssen. This is a premium bowler. This is the guy who's opening the bowling, and Rashid Khan is dealing in boundaries in that over. And then we saw Trent Bolt and Anurag Nortje particularly start to deal in boundaries as well. I thought for MI, this was a good test for that lower middle order because it's kind of all been about Puran, Pollard, David, and really haven't needed the bats of Rashid Khan or Trent Bolt or Anurag Nortje or even Nash Thirskengege. And he got 2 balls and hit that one boundary to cow corner. So it was a good test for them, and I thought it was impressive because this is a team that's kind of live and die with the bowling. To see those bowlers start to make an impact with the bat.
And it took USA's hero, Saurabh Netravalkar, to get him out. Saurabh finishing with 3 for 24 in a player of the match performance. You talked about Marco Janssen getting hit hard. There were 6 sixes on the night hit by MI New York, and Marco Janssen conceded 4 of them. Whereas on the flip side, of the other end of the spectrum, Saurabh Netravalkar with that slower ball. Again, he's not somebody who bowls a lot of Yorkers, but change of pace, slowing the pace down, bowled it wide outside off stump. It was a half volley length, looked juicy, but because of the lack of pace on it, caused Rashid Khan to mistime it. And in the context of this match, you think, oh, if Rashid Khan stays at the crease in the final over instead of getting out first ball of the final over, maybe MI New York gets enough runs where instead of losing by 4 runs on DLS, they might have clung on to win in the rain.
Yeah, I mean, again, the story for MI last season was also that top order not performing, and it feels like it's setting up something similar. They're getting performances in the middle, you're getting runs from your bowlers, but just those bats up top. And Ruben Clinton has been solid. Monik Patel has been all right, had a shot or two. Cheyenne hasn't found the form he had in 2023, so you're finding the team struggling there, needing runs, and but you also know that if there's runs on the board, MI New York has an opportunity to win the game because they have just a world-class bowling lineup. You mentioned the bowlers for the Washington Freedom, and they don't drop off any further for MI New York, and even who don't play, right? You have Anrik Norkia who's going to play, Trent Bolt's going to play, but then from there, you have guys like Rabada just sitting. He's just sitting on the bench for MI New York, and he's a world-class bowler. Rashid Khan's playing. You have so many options in that bowling lineup, and you figure, all right, it's not a crazy total, but 154, it's defendable. And then Ihsan Adil got things going pretty quickly, huh, Peter?
You mentioned the options that they have at their disposal as Sanado and obviously Norkia and Kagiso Rabada sitting on the bench. I think if you talk to USA fans during the World Cup and you ask them who's going to be sitting on the bench as a bowling option for MI New York, the way that Kagiso Rabada finished off the match against USA in the World Cup, that was arguably South Africa's closest match to losing in the World Cup in the first match of the Super 8s. And the way Rabada tied down USA at the end when it looked like Andre Strauss was going to take USA to victory, that just showcases the depth that MI New York has, which is quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like you mentioned, that bowling stint there kind of changed the game. When taking on the USA, Andres House got things going, and it's all right. If you can pull off a 10-run over, and then now Rabada goes, takes a couple wickets, makes it. I think it was less than 2 runs that over. It was just ridiculous. He was special, and again, it's that depth, and everyone you talk to is just like, yeah, this is a team that is loaded, and the beauty of this New York team is they're going to live and die with their bowlers, right? And they feel like they're in every game because they're bowling. And then that middle order is going to win and lose them games, is what they feel. And then everything that they get domestically from a batting perspective is almost just a bonus. You're just looking to get to 20 overs. That's really what the domestic bats up top of the order are. It's just to make sure you bat maybe the first 6, and from there it's like, all right, we'll take it from here. We got it. The likes of Puder and Paulie and David and Rashid Khan. We have it from here. We'll take the next 14. But the top 3 are meant to just, hey, bat the first 6. We've got the rest of it. And it's a formula that worked from last season. And it did them decently well going into that second innings.
And as you pointed out, Esanado starts with a wicket maiden, gets Travis Head out in the second over, and it looked like it was going to be a struggle like it has been for a number of innings so far in Morrisville. And then suddenly Steve Smith looked like he was batting on different wickets to everybody else. Some of the shots he played were quite extraordinary, and some of the catches that were taken in the crowd were even better, Aaman. You saw them firsthand. Which one did you think was the better crowd catch? The one taken by the groundsman one-handed, or the one in the bleachers where a fan had to reach out and he had some interference? The groundsman one-handed, but there was no distraction in front of him. He had a clear path to the ball. The guy in the stands, he had to kind of fight for that one, and he came out with it, and boy, was he happy.
They were both super impressive. I think the groundsman one was just more visually impressive because you see it, you're like, that's a rocket, and it just sticks. It just comes down, sticks straight in the hand. You're like, holy smokes. So that was impressive. And I was like, I saw it straight on, so that was pretty cool. And see the other catch, the crowd reaction to it was awesome as well. Everyone just erupted, and I was kind of blocked off. I couldn't tell if he actually completed the catch or not. I saw him reach out, didn't know if he took it. And then you wait 1 second, and then everyone's roaring. And you're all right, he took that one. And Joe Hickey, who's ground announcing, did the classic give that fan a contract, give the groundsman a contract over the PA system, which was pretty cool for all you baseball fans out there. So there were some impressive catching all around. To be fair, I thought there were some impressive catches in the game. Nicholas Pulley, the screamer you mentioned earlier, that impressive there, and it stuck around basically in the crowd as well.
Well, you had the poor on one-handed catch diving behind the stumps. I tell you, the other thing that stood out to me about that crowd catch, though, the guy in front who was trying to get in the way, it basically went through his hands. He was wearing an LA Knight Riders shirt, and he had no shame. I would have been humiliated had I missed that one, and I would have covered my face and avoided the cameras at all costs. The guy behind him takes the catch, and the guy in the Knight Riders shirt turns around, starts jumping up and down, making the six signals and doing all this crazy nonsense. I'm thinking, buddy, you dropped the ball. Literally, went through your hands. You had a chance at glory and you missed it.
Well, Peter, I remember last time the ball went through my hands at Grand Prairie. Some American journalist ran up to my face with his phone and posted it straight to Twitter. I'm gonna keep him nameless. But last season, I think there's something like that happened. You might be out there on the internet somewhere.
Well, we saw, as you said, Poron's great catch on the field, regardless of the quality or lack thereof off the field. And Smith was killing it. The shot of the day, I thought, was the six he played over extra cover, inside out. It was an extraordinary shot. And to see him the way he performed out there tonight is just an appetizer for what may be in store for the rest of Major League Cricket. What stood out to you most about the way Steve Smith batted tonight?
I think it was his ability to figure it out. It was a struggle early on for him. You saw him not really feel in rhythm. But then he started coming down the track and he said, okay, the bounce is a little weird, but he's going to get to the ball. He's going to make it basically a half volley. And he committed. And then from there, then they had to move off that little 8-yard length rather. And then it got a little, when they got shorter, he was able to, glide it off. If they got too full, he was able to get one. But he was just constantly making the bowlers rethink. And I think that was super impressive. He was so quick between the wickets too. The twos that he was running, he was pushing Andres House all around the ground to go and get two. You mentioned that shot over extra cover. It doesn't, you watch just the shot and you say, there's no way that goes for six. Like it looks like he's just sliced it. But the sound it made off the bat was just ridiculous. The ping off that might have been one of the loudest pings I've ever heard live. And that it soared into the grandstand. They took the catch and whatnot. But what was impressive about Steve, it was just his ability to figure it out because no one was really batting like that on that surface. Nicholas Pulley was the closest to it, but the surface, while it looked like it was getting better to bat on, was playing a couple of tricks. There was still movement. There were clouds, so his ball was starting to swing a little bit, and he just stuck it in and made sure he was going to get some runs. And it was impressive just to see the mindset.
And then the rain came. The only thing that could stop Steve Smith tonight was the weather. He was looking on course for a big score, and unfortunately, first the thunder and lightning, and eventually the rain came. Match stopped at 7.4 overs with the score at 55-1. So, in pursuit of the target of 155, match didn't get a chance to resume. So the adjusted target in the end was 52 runs on Duckworth Lewis, and it meant Washington Freedom prevailed by 4 runs. And now we can look ahead to tomorrow's match in Texas, where play will resume on day 3 of Major League Cricket 2024. And it's going to be the San Francisco Unicorns who will take the field for the first time this season against LA Knight Riders, looking to keep their winning ways going from opening night. It's a new look Unicorns squad. Marcus Stoinis is gone. Aaron Finch is also no longer there, but they've got Jake Fraser McGurk, who you mentioned is somebody you're keeping an eye on coming into this campaign. Pat Cummins, the big blockbuster signing on the bowling side for the Unicorns. What do you think of their chances tomorrow night facing up against LA Knight Riders coming off their season opening win?
Yeah, I think the Unicorns are really interesting, right? What they did really well last season was what they did up top of the order. It was Matthew Wade, it was Finn Allen, it was Marcus Stoinis, and 2 of those 3 are no longer there, right? You have now Jake Fraser McGurk in town, Finn Allen still there. and Matt Short, who's made the trip from the Washington Freedom over to the San Francisco Unicorns. So they're still looking at that top order because Matthew Short had an incredible BBL. You had, of course, Jake Frazier McGurk has just been lighting up T20 franchise cricket all around the world, including the IPL. And then Finn Allen is one of the more aggressive new openers in the world. So they're going to still look at him up top the order. I think one of the bigger holes that opened up was the Sherfane Rutherford leaving the camp. Obviously, his mom has a medical emergency, and he had to go down to the West Indies. And our hearts and prayers with him and his family. But he's no longer part of the camp. So now, where do they look in terms of that kind of third pacer, that all-rounder role? Because you're going to have Carmine LaRue, who is really impressive. You're going to have Pat Cummins in the team, and then is it Haris Rauf who comes in? Is it going to be someone like a Matt Henry who comes in? You can't really replace a Sherfane Rutherford, but you can surround some, put some pieces around. And I like the Unicorns' chance. I think that this is a team that their top four is going to bat well with Corey Anderson involved. And I think that, Hassan Khan is going to be someone to watch out for. Number 2 overall pick in the domestic draft this last season. I think he was a consensus number 1, slid to number 2, and the Unicorns gladly took him. So I'm excited for this Unicorns team. I think the Knight Riders, they had some good success, and I think they could definitely put something together, but I think the Unicorns have something really special in that camp.
Sherfane Rutherford, you mentioned it had to leave the camp for what was initially a medical emergency. The Unicorns put out a statement saying that his mother, in fact, passed away, and we pass along our condolences to the Rutherford family. And from a cricket side of things, we just don't know how long he will be missing. It could be a couple matches. It could be for the rest of the season. We just don't know. He could be gone for a lengthy period of time. And while we send our thoughts and prayers to his family, there's also the cricket element of it. And as you touched on, there's a number of options that they have to consider to try and figure out the best combination to go forward. They've also got one guy you didn't mention, Kareem Agor. Agor, who he's somebody who's played for USA as a left-arm spinner primarily, but since the last time he appeared for USA in November 2021 at the T20 World Cup qualifier in Antigua, he's gone back and played in the Leewards Island setup primarily as a top and middle order bat. He's scored a lot of runs at 4 in the order for Leewards, and I'm curious what you think his chances are of coming in and potentially as an all-round proposition, whether with his bat or his left arm spin or his electric fielding. I think he's one of the top fielders in the competition, and I think that's the part of his game that's going to wow a lot of people and win a lot of fans for Kareem Agor if he can get on the field. What do you think his chances are of getting on the field, Aaman?
Yeah, he'll be on the field at least for as a fielding sub from time to time. And I think he's got a good chance.
Somebody's going to cramp up and go, I got to get off the field. Get the super sub Kareem onto field for me.
So you saw Aaron Jones, a super sub, all the time last season. I think Kareem Agor could be something. If he doesn't crack the 11, we'll get him that way. But I do think Kareem has a good chance to get into this 11. I think him or Sanjay Krishnamurthy, I think they're battling for a spot, really. I think because they have the one overseas spinner in Abrar Ahmed, the Pakistani leggy. I don't know if they go to him. I think they could use 2 domestic spinners, and that they have 3 left arm spinners to do the best, and they can look at Hassan Khan and pairing him with Sanjay Krishnamurthy or Kareem Agor, and both of whom bat quite a bit, and Kareem has taken that next step with the bat in hand, and Sanjay obviously a retention, won the couple of youth guys that got retained. So there's some interesting questions there, and I do think that Kareem Agor's got a good shot to make the 11. I also think Jamar Hamilton's got an outside chance to get in. I know Josh Inglis has all the buzz around him, but maybe with Sherfane Rutherford going out, you bring in Jamar Hamilton. It frees up another overseas spot that you can fill something else with. I think there's some interesting questions. Is Liam Plunkett still Liam Plunkett? Has age finally caught up to the ageless wonder? Who knows? So I think there's some interesting questions. I think Kareem Agor's got a good shot, and I think guys like Jamar Hamilton can make their major league debut tomorrow.
Well, keep your eyes tuned to the match tomorrow, as again it'll be the Unicorns taking on LA Knight Riders at Grand Prairie Stadium. And now we're going to get to some user feedback, some viewer feedback. As we get some interaction from fans, you can shout us through email. hello@uscricketdaily.com or send us a tweet at uscricketdaily on X and other social media outlets. You can contact us on through Instagram and TikTok as well. Cricket Lover 11 has got a question for us, Aaman, asking, who do you both think will win MLC 2024?
Am I starting this one, Peter? All right.
You got
Putting me on the spot with
Aaman.
this one. But I think there's a lot of really interesting questions. I think anybody on any given day can beat anybody. I like the Washington Freedom setup a lot. I think they have a lot of really good options. I think if they're top four bat, 15 overs, it's going to be tough to beat them. So I know it's a tall ask, but I really like the Washington Freedom. MI New York, they're still the defending champs. You have to get through them, and there's a lot of exciting teams all around. But I think the Freedom just have some really exciting names, and I think the combinations work.
I like the fact that even though there's been a tremendous effort on the television broadcast to try and make as many baseball comparisons as possible, you've just slipped in an NFL one on any given Sunday. Any team can come away with victory. Get the Al Pacino speech out from the movie, Aaman. Can slide it in there, dub it over the top on our episode. I agree with you. Washington Freedom, I just like their balance. They're stacked. And if you look at the domestic players, I think that's a hugely important part. Arguably, coming out of the World Cup, they've got the best bowler and the best bat out of the USA setup in Andres Krause and Saurabh Netravalkar. You add that on top of the additions they've made in the likes of Steve Smith, who made a big statement tonight, and Travis Head, who obviously didn't make as big a statement tonight. But they've just got a tremendous amount of options and balance that other teams don't have, and I just like them a lot. So I agree with you on that one. Atul says, love the podcast. Would also love to see teams travel to New York and Florida next year. New York is going to be an interesting one because obviously they've torn down the Nassau County International Cricket Stadium just after the World Cup. MLC was looking at potentially playing games there this season. It wasn't going to work out for financial reasons. But Florida potentially could be an option. What are your thoughts on going back to Florida, Aaman, when the possibility exists that you could see more rain than you had in Morrisville tonight than actual cricket being played?
Yeah, that is the tough part about Florida. It's just the weather that's the concern. Anytime you're over there, rain seems to just affect play. And I think it'd be cool. I think the crowds in Florida were good when we were there for the World Cup. I think the crowds were great. So if there is that real desire, I don't see why you couldn't do Florida. But I do think there's that rain potential that is just it's just unnervy, isn't it? It's just you don't feel like comfortable saying that, okay, we're scheduled, let's say 5 games in Florida. You're like, maybe you get 2. 3 of these could easily just be wiped out. And that's, obviously the league's got to make broadcast money, the ticket revenues, and it's expensive to set these things up and lease grounds. There's a lot that goes into it. Would it be cool to see the expansion? Yes. Do I think we're going to get it soon? Yes. Do I think Florida's the one? I think it can go either way.
Well, yeah, as you said, hurricane season in Florida. If MLC was scheduled in December and January, Florida would be perfect to host MLC. But being right smack in the middle of hurricane season, and not to make light of things, but Hurricane Beryl just rolled through Barbados at the tail end of the World Cup and caused complications for the Indian team. And Ricky Ponting, you talked to tonight, he said he couldn't get to North Carolina because he was stuck in Barbados at the tail end of the hurricane, and all the flights were canceled coming out. And it's just a slice of luck that it didn't go to Florida, or else, again, that would just further highlight the issue that it's that time of year. You're taking an awfully big risk to schedule games in that part of the world when it's hurricane season on. And so that's obviously consideration number one in that regard. That kind of puts a wrench into any plans. And then finally, Andrew has messaged to say, I've loved the start of the podcast. Well, we love you too, Andrew. Thank you for that. Finally, a podcast for MLC. My question for Peter is, I've noticed you've had a haircut with all the coverage of the matches that you do. How have you managed to have time? Well, I don't have time. It's my wife who made the time for me. My wife took over barber duties during COVID. When all the barbershops shut down during COVID, I was 2 months into not having my hair cut, and there was no end in sight in terms of when we thought barbershops might reopen again. So we went on Amazon, bought a set of clippers, and it's one of the best investments I've ever made, I gotta say, because they only cost $100. Each haircut was costing $20, so it paid for itself in the first 5 haircuts that we did, and I've probably saved at least $400, $500 in the couple years since then, without having to go to a barbershop every time. And my wife, I've got to say thank you very much. And our producer, James, complimented me yesterday ahead of the episode. And he said, wow, you gonna got a haircut. Looks great. I said, well, thank my wife. She's the one who did it. So that's the secret for anybody who's wondering out there what's happening, who cuts my hair. And if you got any other questions, hair related or otherwise, again, message us hello@uscricketdaily.com. And you can also follow us on US Cricket Daily on YouTube, Instagram, X, TikTok. Just search US Cricket Daily. At US Cricket Daily on a number of those handles is where to find us. And just a reminder, we will be back after tomorrow's match, but also coming up later in the week, we've got huge cricket fan, quote, quote, in the notes here. He's more than that, Aaman. Piers Morgan. There's a lot of things. Cricket fandom is just one of them, but he's been generous enough to agree to do an interview with us for US Cricket Daily, so we're looking forward to that. And we've also got lined up, Aaman made such a good impression on Ricky Ponting tonight in the sideline pitch side interview that Ricky Ponting, the one and only Australian legend and Washington Freedom coach, he's going to be coming on the podcast as well.
Yeah, Peter, I can't take credit for that one. That's just our great team doing what they do best. Is it nice to have credit? Sure, but I can't take it on that one.
Oh, you're too modest, Aaman. You should. The opportunity was sitting for you on a golden platter. No, it was all me. Ricky Ponting. He loved me. He wants more Aaman Patel. Everybody wants more Aaman Patel. Everybody loves Aaman Patel on the broadcast down in North Carolina. So you'll get more of Aaman on US Cricket Daily, and you'll get more of Piers Morgan and Ricky Ponting over the course of the next week or so. But that's it for this episode. Join us again on the next edition of US Cricket Daily. I'm Peter Della Penna on behalf of Aaman Patel. Thanks again for following along.